Zhang Yi, once considered weak, now stood before the residents of apartment number 18. Their faces showed sincerity but also a deep determination to protect Lin Jian, even at the cost of their own lives. The tense atmosphere made Zhang Yi try to calm the situation. He began to dig into the reason behind their fear until they finally admitted that the baby he had entrusted to them, Si Lime, had not survived. That explanation opened Zhang Yi's awareness. Their fear actually stemmed from the baby he had once abandoned. The residents mistakenly believed that the child was of great importance to him, so her death was considered a grave mistake. Zhang Yi understood that surviving in these conditions was already difficult, let alone for a baby. He assured them that the tragedy was not their fault and stated that he only wanted to understand how they had managed to survive. Lin Jian, as their leader, invited Zhang Yi inside, promising to show him something interesting. Along the way, Lin Jian explained that they had repeatedly tried to plant the seeds Zhang Yi had given them, but all their attempts had failed. Everything changed when a group from the snow sect arrived, offering help, but only on the condition that they worshipped the snow god. After enduring great hardship, Lin Jian finally accepted their offer, gaining a new ability that changed his life. His body was now capable of growing plants, earning him the title of the Plant Man. The produce he generated was highly nutritious and grew rapidly in any environment. However, Zhang Yi felt something was off about this ability. A human body should not be able to produce food in such large quantities. Without hesitation, Zhang Yi stepped into a room Lin Jian had mentioned, only to be horrified by the sight before him, dead bodies, serving as fertile soil for growing crops. Lin Jian explained that they used corpses as fertilizer to grow the seeds. Around them, there were many unused bodies that served as a resource for survival. Zhang Yi, intrigued, asked how many rooms had already been used for this purpose. It turned out that 3 rooms had been utilized so far, and for now, they did not need more. Even though this concept of self-sustainability sounded reasonable, Zhang Yi warned that if this method continued, Lin Jian's body would eventually be unable to endure it, leading to his death. Lin Jian accepted this reality. Using his powers was painful, but he was willing to bear the suffering to ensure the survival of his wife and child. Although Zhang Yi found such self-sacrifice irrational, he couldn't help but admire Lin Jian's courage. He then asked to see Lin Jian's ability more clearly, wanting to determine whether his power was natural, like Zhang Yi's, or artificially induced like the abilities of those at the military base. Additionally, Zhang Yi wanted to know if Lin Jian's power could be used offensively, or if it was limited to plant growth. Prepared to demonstrate his ability, Lin Jian exerted himself, causing one of the seeds embedded in his arm to rapidly sprout and grow into a fully developed plant. Witnessing this, Zhang Yi felt disgusted and immediately warned that it was enough. The process was draining Lin Jian's already weakened body. Walking toward the door, Zhang Yi grabbed the newly grown plant, contemplating what he had just seen. He acknowledged that such an ability was extremely useful for food production in times like these. However, if he ever deemed it a threat, Zhang Yi wouldn't hesitate to eliminate Lin Jian and all the residents of the apartment. Having gathered all the information he needed, Zhang Yi left Lin Jian and the others without a word, leaving them to continue their grim existence. Lin Jian, the leader of apartment number 18, felt relieved as Zhang Yi, the feared and deadly figure, finally left. For Lin Jian, his experiment had seemingly succeeded, but he knew that their lives still remained under Zhang Yi's control. Zhang Yi returned to his residence. There wasn't much he could do except wait for developments regarding the missile threat before taking further action. The attack plan would only proceed if Lien successfully planted the tracking chip into the military base's central computer. At the military base, newly enslaved residents were being assigned to their respective workstations. Many of the villagers were furious. One grieving father wept, expressing his resentment. He claimed that these newcomers had stolen their food, taken their homes, and killed his father and daughter. He believed they were 100 times worse than Zhang Yi. But complaints about injustice only led to execution. Anyone who did not wish to share the same fate was forced into obedience. The soldiers had once helped and sacrificed for their village, but now, they had to repay everything through forced labor in the base. From a distance, Lien watched everything with mixed emotions. He knew that the bodies of the fallen residents would soon be used as raw materials, but he chose to focus his thoughts on the mission at hand. He headed to the second floor, a place divided into 5 main sections, including food and nutrition. Security on this floor was not as strict as on the EMP floor, which was the main focus of Chen Yuan, the base leader. As he approached the control room, Lien ensured the surrounding area was safe. However, he was startled when someone touched his shoulder from behind. He instinctively prepared to attack, but his movement stopped when a familiar voice urged him not to act. He recognized the voice. It was Tian, one of his students. Tian looked shocked to see Lien return after having previously escaped. He asked why his teacher had come back. Lien explained that he had returned to save Tian and the other students. Tian then recounted his experiences. He revealed that the students had been taken to undergo cruel experiments, and he was the only one who had survived. The methods used were so brutal that even remembering them made him cry. Those who managed to survive were given the opportunity to serve the base and live a better life, but at a heavy price. Their life force was drained every time they used their powers. Lien listened intently, then asked what Tian planned to do. Tian stated that he not only wanted to escape but also sought revenge on those who had tortured them and destroyed their lives. Lien comforted his student, assuring him that there was still hope, to save the remaining survivors and take revenge at the same time. After discussing and formulating a strategy, Tian spoke with other soldiers, issuing orders to guard the control room. Meanwhile, Lien began preparing to install the tracking chip in the military base's computer. On the other hand, Zhang Yi was at his residence. That day marked the deadline given by Qinyuan for Zhang Yi to decide whether he would join him. When the call came, Zhang Yi gave a firm response. He would not join and was not afraid of any threats. This declaration enraged Qinyuan, who then threatened to destroy Banger, Zhang Yi, and his family. However, Zhang Yi remained unfazed, simply telling Chen to wait for the consequences of his actions before ending the call. Even though the missile threat from Qinyuan seemed real, Zhang Yi knew that joining the military base was not an option for him. His top priority now was finding a new place to protect the people he cared about. His thoughts were interrupted when a message from Lien arrived. In it, Lien reported that he had successfully completed his part of the deal by installing the tracking chip in the military base's computer. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi immediately went to find Shinsen and informed her of Lien's success. The news excited Shinsen, the girl familiar with wheeled devices. She quickly grabbed her computer and began working. Even though she only had a basic computer, she managed to access all the data from the enemy military base. A look of triumph spread across her face as she confidently declared that nothing could stop her now. Zhang Yi moved closer to see what data had been retrieved. At that moment, Shinsen was completely focused on her screen. Zhang Yi directed his attention to their greatest concern, the missile threat. He asked if they could access any information regarding the weapon. Shinsen began retrieving conversations between military base leaders from various cities. From the data, they discovered that a missile launch was indeed being planned against a common enemy. This revelation shocked them both. The missile threat Qinyuan had mentioned was real. Realizing this, Zhang Yi felt a deep sense of loss. The destruction of Banger would be a devastating blow. However, amidst the serious atmosphere, Shinsen presented a bold plan. With a teasing tone, she asked Zhang Yi if he was ready to have a little fun while executing her idea. Shinsen's plan was to alter the missile's target coordinates, so that instead of hitting Banger, the missile would strike Qinyuan's own base. Her strategy impressed Zhang Yi, though he questioned whether the change would be detected. With confidence, Shinsen explained the mechanism behind the coordinate manipulation, ensuring that Qinyuan's allies would not realize the change. Once the launch command was given, she would sever communications between the bases, preventing interference during the missile's flight. Zhang Yi then requested Karen to check the structural layout of the enemy's base. He wanted to determine whether its destruction was truly feasible. Karen explained that Zishan base had an extremely strong structure, extending 100 meters underground. Even a missile alone would not be enough to completely destroy it. Despite this, Zhang Yi was not entirely satisfied. He still ordered Shinsen to proceed with the plan to redirect the missile toward Qinyuan's base. Additionally, he requested complete data on Zishan base's defense and weaponry systems. After issuing his commands, Zhang Yi left the room without saying another word. Karen, curious about Zhang Yi's intentions, did not fully understand his plan. However, Shinsen speculated that Zhang Yi might be preparing for a direct assault on the military base to eliminate his enemies. Even so, she noted that Zhang Yi was extremely cautious and was still considering the significant risks involved in such a mission. Zhang Yi then took a moment to reflect. So far, he had managed to survive Qinyuan's attacks, but he realized that his current situation did not guarantee his safety. Despite the risks, this might be his only opportunity to launch an assault on the base and eliminate his enemies once and for all.